Hey everyone, Dr. Frunkey here with a new comparison video for you. In front of us tonight we've got two Nirvanas. So the Nirvana is a knife that was originally designed by custom knife maker Peter Rassenti. He's out of Canada. He hand makes custom knives, and he's got a great Instagram and YouTube channel, and he's got a lot of information out there. You can go check him out online. But he makes these custom knives, and he's famous mostly for one thing, and that's the integral handle. He has sort of mastered the art of making a small one-piece titanium handle. Right here we've got a full custom that I recently got from him. Again, handmade, hand-contoured, everything done by hand. These got so popular that everyone was talking about them in the knife community, but they're a little bit too expensive for a lot of people. This one actually came in around $1,300, so pretty damn expensive, honestly. Making me have to sell some of my other knives to even afford this right now. So in order to be more affordable, Spyderco came to Mr. Rassenti and offered to make sort of a mid-tech version of his knife, and that's how the Spyderco Nirvana was born. Now, this knife was announced almost a year before it was ever released, maybe close to 2 years before it was actually released. They spent a lot of time figuring out a production manufacturing process to make these integral handles, because that was the whole point of the knife, was to make an integral handled production Rassenti knife. And I think that they did it really well, but I wanted to sort of talk about the main similarities and differences between the full custom and the production Nirvana. So, sort of as I do in the review videos, we can talk about these things anatomically. We can start with the blades here. So the Spyderco Nirvana comes with an S90V blade. Peter Rassenti is known for using S90V. He uses a lot of different steels. This one came in CPM 154, which, to be perfectly honest, at that price point is not really the best steel out there, but it's perfectly adequate. Good edge retention, good stainless properties, and it's more steel than I'll ever really need. But S90V is really, top of the line steel. Really, really nice. The original Spyderco Nirvana came with a very similar overall blade grind to the custom here. It had these flats, and then the Spyderco version had a flat grind that went down to the edge. Now, I didn't really like that grind very much. I felt that the flat grind was a little bit too wide behind the edge, and then the flats made it just a very thick blade, didn't slice very well. And so I sent this off to Josh over at Razor Edge Knives, and he reground the blade for me to this full flat grind. Really high satin finish right there. You can see the reflections of the room around here. But I think what Mr. Rassenti does that makes this knife actually much more usable is that he's done a really nice hollow grind there on his primary bevel, and that's really, really nice. It allows this knife to be really, really thin behind the edge, and it slices really, really nicely. Now, I've had my good friend put a mirror finish wicked edge here. Really, really nice. This one is at 17 degrees per side, and this thing just slices really, really perfectly. That hollow grind, though, is critical in order to make this a more user-friendly knife. The regrind here, though, now at the full flat grind on this one ends up being a better slicer simply because of the full flat grind. If we're going to talk about which knife functions better as a cutter right now, still the Spyderco style full flat grind really does work the best. But both of them slice really nicely. Both come with the large spider hole. Now, Mr. Rassenti used that on his blades as part of his signature look as well. Can't really fault him for that. Really got to like the overall blade length, though. This is a 3.75-inch blade on both of these knives. And what Mr. Rassenti has really mastered is making a small enough handle where that blade really fits in there very tightly, and you get a whole lot of blade in a very small handle. So I'll bring out a couple of comparisons here to just sort of show you. This is the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. And what you'll see is all of these three have about the same sized handle, but the Paramilitary 2 comes in with a blade length, like an actual cutting length, somewhere around 3 inches. Just over 3 inches, whereas these have, 3.75 inches of cutting length. So really incredible differences going on there. Similarly, we can bring out an XM18 here. You can see this is a 3.5 inch blade, but again, also with a handle that's quite long. And just for shits and giggles, we're going to bring out the 0392, also similarly long handle with 3.5 inch blades. So amazing packaging going on here with these two knives in order to get all that blade in there. So let's move back from the blades. We've sort of talked about those. I guess one more note is just sort of the finish work on this knife. You could talk about it at any segment, but really on the blade, I just want to appreciate for a minute the amazing customization here. There's a matte sand. There is a matte finish stone wash on the primary hollow grind bevel there, and there is a mirrored stone wash. You can see that there on the flats, and I really like that. I really like now that I've got a mirrored finish edge. It kind of works nicely with that mirror stone wash. He carries the matte finish up on top and on the spine. Another point about the blades on the Spyderco Nirvana, we've got that tapering jimping going on there. That's similar to the Nirvana ones that Mr. Rassenti made, and this is technically a Nirvana 2.0, so it is a little bit of an evolution. It's got that sort of forward thumb divot right there for putting a little more pressure on the blade. It does work nicely. So moving back from the blades, we can talk about the pivots. There's a big difference here in the pivots and the actions on these knives. So they both ride on ball bearings. They're caged ball bearing systems, like a washer with ball bearings in it, but the actions could not be more different. One of the main gripes that people had about the Spyderco Nirvana is that there's a lot of tension. It is a smooth knife. It does fire really aggressively, but there is a whole lot of tension there on the lock bar, and so it makes the action not quite as smooth. That knife is never really going to be a true free dropper. Now, when it was in its original form, it had a heavier blade. It would fall closed a little bit easier than that, but check this out, okay? You just release it, and it falls down. The action on this is insanely smooth, just very smooth on the pivot. This comes with GTC style bearings. I don't know if I'm going to get it to focus well enough here. What that means is that we have bearings with 440C stainless steel bearings trapped in a washer, and it is on both sides of the pivot here. The way that they recommend installing these things, you put a hole in one side of your frame and a hole sort of in one side of your blade, and it allows the bearings to sit in one part of the frame and then in one part of the blade, so you can actually open it and close it after releasing the pivot very easily. There's some videos of that online. Really cool bearing system, really smooth too. Designed by Gustavo Cecchini out of Brazil. Really nice system. He uses it on his knives too. Super smooth. In terms of the actual pivot hardware, I think that Spyderco, and you can see this in my video review of the Nirvana, really let a lot of people down by sticking with a plain screw here. I get the whole sort of push for EDC and functionality, but when you're going to do a knife like this, when you're going to sell it for $430, I mean, you're selling a show knife. You're not really selling a workhorse knife. This is not going to, be to somebody what the PM2 is. I mean, this is a workhorse knife. This is really meant to be a tour de force, a show of their technologies. And I think that they messed up by putting in just a basic pivot screw there. Mr. Rassenti has a subdued sort of custom pivot there. You see that on a lot of knives. It's nothing, brand new, nothing that's going to change the world. But he's done a nice finish on it where he has anodized it. He then stonewashed it or bead blasted it, and then he polished it. So It's got an anodization on there. I'm going to see if I can catch it in the light. It may not want to focus. Here we go. It's sort of a gray blue, and then it was media finished, and then it was polished. So it looks really cool. I like that. It gives it just a hint of a darker color. I don't know if it's quite a blue. It looks like a blue-gray to me. Really, really cool. I appreciate that on here. Of course, you're paying more here. But let's talk about where the real price difference, I feel like, happens, and that's in the handle. Now, both of these are awesome in the sense that they are both integral handles. I think Spyderco did an awesome job executing the Rassenti design philosophy, the lightweight and the strength that the integral handle provides. They did this flawlessly. I love this knife so much I had to go and get one of these because this impressed me. I had to know what the real version was like. Some subtle differences. This is a Nirvana 1.0 and this is a 2.0, so this one is really a one-of-one design here with this 3D hand contour design. It's got what he's calling a Coke bottle finish. You're going to see that the sort of the middle of it bulges out and it's thinner here and thinner there. This one is more of a uniform square with one little milled out part there. So the overall shape is different. The regular Nirvanas look much more like this, but the frames are thicker. What you're going to see here is that this Nirvana comes down to a much thinner piece of metal right here, whereas the custom versions keep a pretty thick frame going on towards the bottom. Now that may be also the differences between the Nirvana 1.0 and 2.0, so don't quote me on that. I'm not really a Rassenti expert. I'm just talking about the differences in these two knives as I've owned them and used them. Both of them titanium frame locks, obviously without any lock bar inserts. You can see that they both have the detent balls. They've been done in slightly different ways, executed slightly different ways. I've put this deep carry pocket clip on here because I enjoyed that. I will say that this clip, although it's beautiful, is a little bit more difficult to use. It doesn't really have as much of a space here to go onto clothing, but it works just well. Once you kind of learn how it's supposed to go on, it works really, really nicely. Of course, I really love the orange peel finish going on here and the way that it's 3D sort of, it's got a texture to it and a 3D sort of wave to it that just makes it really eye-popping. This one is very plain. I wanted this to match. I like how the gray matches the gray here. I got this for Blade for Sale on Amazon, so you can go check that out if you're interested in that clip. Works really well. It was supposed to be for a paramilitary too. It works on the Spyderco 3-hole pattern. An interesting difference in the handle design is that Peter Rassenti uses what I presume to be a steel stop bar pin right there, and you can actually see it. Now, he finishes that stop bar pin with the rest of the handle, so it's contoured, it's smooth, you don't feel it, but you do see it. And Spyderco has done something else entirely. There is a pin in there. I'm not sure if it's milled into this handle or if they somehow press fit it in there. But from what I can tell, that there is not really external evidence of that stop pin here. All of the Rassenti Customs have that stop pin there. And I wonder how Spyderco did that. It's an interesting production technique there, and I wonder if they could teach something to Peter about how to do that. Maybe he prefers to do this because it's stronger. I don't know. I'd have to ask him myself. I really do enjoy how both of them have a little bit of jimping back here. It allows you to really sink into your hand and open the knives. Now, I will say both of these knives are excellent for people who enjoy the Spidey flick. The Spidey flick has probably become my #1 favorite method of opening. That may be for another video. What's your favorite type of opening technique? I think that it's really easy to fall in love with flippers because the action is so easy to open and close, but it does become kind of monotonous after a while. I think that the Spidey flick technique requires some dexterity and some concentration, and it's it's a fun little exercise to do. So you can see there's some extra tension on this knife. It will pop open once you get over the resistance, but you just have to know how to do it, and hard to do behind the camera sometimes. But both of these knives are much easier to open in the Spidey Flick configuration. What I've noticed is when I try to open it with my thumb, my fingers tend to push on the lock bar. It makes it, it's not so bad on the Spyderco version here, but on the Rassenti, it makes it pretty much unopenable. I can't even do it. You can thumb flick it if you want to, and if I really hold my hands in the specific spot, it will open. But this knife in particular really enjoys being Spidey flicked open, and I do like that a lot. It's a lot of fun. Let's compare these things on weight here. So I'll pull out the scale. The custom comes in at 4.20 ounces. You gotta love that. 4.20. Okay, moving on. We're gonna have the Spyderco version. This comes in at 4.16. That may be a little lighter because of the lack of material in the clip. Also, you know, a lot of metal has been shaved off of the blade here. So honestly, if this was in stock form, it'd probably be considerably heavier than the custom version here. Just showing how nice these knives are to carry. Just incredibly nice knives. They come in right at that perfect 4 to 5 ounce range that gives them a little bit of weight, so you know that they're there, but they're not too heavy to carry even in a light EDC package. I really like how Mr. Rassenti has included his logo there, and he's got a small cutout on the titanium frame lock. Spyderco had to make a somewhat bigger cutout on the frame lock there to get it to work, apparently. You gotta love the design pattern going on here. Spyderco did a good job of somehow getting this 3D design pattern all the way around this knife. It's really done flawlessly. There's one area right here where, for some reason, everywhere else on this knife, there is a line everywhere. It goes all the way through to all these other parts, but it doesn't go. This one line comes right up to here, and then it stops. And it's not on this part, and that has always bugged me a little bit. So this one just has a plain pattern, but you can really appreciate if I could get this in to focus really well. Let's see, there it goes. So there is an orange peel finish going on here. This is done in 3 stages. So he orange peels it with a treatment, and then he stone washes it, and then he polished it. So just really incredibly nicely finished, just beautifully done. I want to try to get a real close-up on this, see if the camera will focus on it. Yeah, okay. Let's just take a look there at that finishing work and the shape of the frame. A little bit different there. Again, this is a 1 of 1 right now as far as I know. He may make more of these. He may have already made more, but he said it was a new design when he sold me this one. Oh, look at that lighting effect that's going on there. But you can see the orange peel pretty well with the light looking like that. Pretty cool finishing going on here. Try to refocus there. So I'm getting close to being done with this video here, kind of running out of time. But, you know, I'm going to say that after owning both of these knives, the Rassenti is just obviously leaps and bounds nicer. The action, the overall feel, the hand milling, the sort of solidity and the quality here, you can feel it in every single piece. I get why these knives are so popular. I get why he is such a revered knife maker. This is perfection. This is now my favorite knife in my collection, dethroning the 0392. And it sort of made this one obsolete. I don't really see a point in owning or carrying this one anymore. I have a very excited fan of mine who is going to be receiving this knife in Australia. I'm going to be shipping it out this weekend. So this is the last time that I'm going to have this knife. I know I said I'd never sell it, but you know how this goes. You just keep evolving and, you know, finding new things, and things move. So this is going to be my Nirvana. This is absolute perfection. And this one is going to go to a happy new home. I hope this kind of showed you some of the differences between the custom and the production Nirvana. Go check out Peter Rassenti's work. He's an amazing knife maker. He does some beautiful custom pieces. Obviously, if you're interested in it, then the Spyderco version is a great way to get into his design philosophy at a much better price. I would highly recommend picking this up if you have it. Send it to Josh at Razor Edge Knives to get that grind done on it. If you like my videos, guys, click like and subscribe. As always, this is Dr. Frunkey saying take care.